Power on.
T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission, the flight to land of the first men on the moon. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds in the counting. Our status board indicates the third stage completely pressurized. 80-second mark has now been passed. We'll go on full internal power at the 50-second mark in the countdown. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. We're approaching the 60-second mark on the Apollo 11 mission. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff.
You can see the water
All the second
deluge
stage
beginning
tanks
in
now
there
pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy, it looks good, Wally.
Tower cleared.
Yeah, we got a roll program. Somebody must be leaving town.
Reporting to roll pitch program. Pitch Apollo 11.
Building shaking. We're getting that buffeting we've become used to. What a moment. Man on the way to the moon.
Like a good trajectory so far, doesn't it, Wally? Very good, very good. That's...
Earth, 2019. Dominant species, human. Galactic potential rating, 0. Cultural affiliation, combination of government and global businesses, corporatism, legacy institution. Species still conservative, superstitious, and religious. Ecologically illiterate, largely unaware of cosmological foundation of love. Level of technological dependence is disturbingly higher than the galactic standard. Species distracted and behavior controlled by technology companies. System error. Advanced concepts detected beyond normal human levels. New galactic potential rating, over 9,000. Transmission type, podcast. Host, the man of tomorrow, Brian Sovryn. Source, Sovryn Tech.
Welcome to another episode of Sovryn Tech.
Wait a minute. I don't think anybody was ready for that because I think that's my line.
Too slow.
Too slow. Well, I make you CSO of Zomia 1 and then you start just calling the openers on the show. What the hell? Anyway, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the radar radio star, is here for you. The thriller that is Savzilla, being joined by the thriller that is, well, I can't rhyme it, but Ellen Stallone. Welcome to Sovryn Tech once again.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, you were recently on a nice Q&A episode for Zomia 1 Underground members only. That was a great time. That went like 2 hours and change.
We had so much fun.
Yeah,
Didn't want to stop.
No, yeah, there was a lot to talk about, that's for sure. You had a ton of questions for me, and I said things that I don't think I've ever said out loud before, but you ended up causing that to happen, which I don't know whether or not to thank you, but there it is. And
Yeah, at least you haven't said it to your listeners, so I mean, that's just another reason for them to become a patron of yours.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. See, look, the perfect CSO. She's selling everybody right now, you know. And you're going to be on even more content
Yeah,
with
that's
all
right.
that. And we have a lot of great episodes for other things actually coming out throughout the entire, not just on Sovryn Tech, but the entire network of Zomia 1 that I know you'll be featured in as well. Because, boy, we've had some good times, to put it very mildly. And that's very mildly as far as what we've been up to. But
Yeah, we have so many things to review. Movies, concerts.
Yeah. So, geez, it's probably been about a year, I think, since you've been on Sovryn Tech proper. So, but you've been a busy gal. I know you're
Very busy.
Getting in your education, getting in the whole thing. You know, I mean, folks, we are being joined here by a full-on. Well, I mean, what can't we call you? Scientist, engineer? I mean, what
Dreamer? I don't
Dreamer?
know.
Yeah. Certainly ambitious as fuck, that's for sure. So, anyway, it's always great having you on, and I know, and actually, I've already gotten response from the recent Q&A that you were on, and people just loved hearing you, on there. So I love having you on the main show, of course.
Yeah, thank you. I was so honored by that. It was really flattering what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
person said. So,
Yeah, all the comments, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we have, of course, last time you were on the show, Sovryn Tech had like a 2-hour format. And actually, I think we'd end up going for like significantly longer than that. But so we'll see how long this episode shapes up, because there's not so much of a hard rule on, and this is something you and I have actually discussed, but there's not so much of a hard rule on length. So who knows how the hell long this will go? But we're going to go for it. So we've got a lot of great stories to get into. Some of the usual segments won't be in this episode, if people are wondering where those are. But I don't know. You ready to get in on this action?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's
All right.
do it.
Yeah, let's talk it up. So this is something, opening this up, we'll get into a little bit of the foreplay here with some, we'll get into some tech stories, and then we have some fun stuff to actually talk about here in a minute. And boy, if you hear something in the background, holy hell, if it sounds like a starship in here, first off, I would love nothing more than to be on a starship with you, Ellen. Like, just,
Yes.
you and me going through the stars. Let's rock and roll.
Dream come true.
Absolutely. But it's actually an air conditioner, because fucking A, in New Hampshire, it is like 100 degrees.
Yeah, there's a heat wave.
Yeah, heat wave.
It's
The
crazy.
past couple days, it's been pretty bad. And so if you do hear that, I'm going to try and edit it out later, but if you still hear it, that's what's going on. But speaking of starships, we might end up talking a little bit about that during the foreplay, but I won't spoil that surprise yet, because there are some surprises, and there will be some spoilers at that point. I mean, there really, really will. Because I know you and I were watching this little trailer that we'll talk about later together, and I mean, I was shocked. Like, I just, my jaw, hit the floor. But anyway.
I know you can't see us right now, but I'm like rubbing my hands together in anticipation.
Oh,
of
you're
this
excited.
moment. Yeah.
You're excited
Yeah.
for this action. I understand. Well, something that I actually want to find out if you are excited for, and this is something that, getting with our first story here, this is something that actually proves, well, frankly, as I think happens often, proves me right. In fact, I've been right for years about this. And what we have is that now Google has a few different, well, there's like X Labs, there's a few different little groups within Google, and this is true for a lot of the tech giants, where they have experimental outfits, like teams that work on very specific things that aren't like a full-on Google release. Amazon has these as well, like Labs 123. Pretty much every company has this. It's their skunk works, as it were. Well, a new app is being tested right now, and it's from Google's Area 120, which is one of their little skunkworks outfits, and it's called Shoelace, is it? I think it's called Shoelace. And this is basically, it's a hyper-local social media app. So everything that you expect a social media app to do, this can do, but it's concentrating on being in a very, like in a very small area. Now, the reason that I say this is one of me being right is because I had said that sooner or later, by nature, I mean, I think social media is inherently a problem anyway. But if it were to exist, it's going to, just like maps, just like all kinds of things, it's going to end up becoming very, very local. In fact, in a recent episode I talked about with Telegram, where they had created more local messaging features. And I said it, I was like, this is exactly what I said would happen, because, people can't handle talking to or dealing with, like this global infrastructure. They can't handle talking to 5,000 people like on their Facebook list. They can't handle, you can't keep up with it. And so something hyper local, I think Google is hoping to, make a change for this. Let me ask you this, Ellen. How do you feel about, like, say, in a small town where you live, if you lived in a small town, like, how would you feel about a social media app that existed specifically to service that, that geolocation? Or maybe would it be something you might find helpful if you're traveling, something like that? Give me your take on a hyper-local social media app.
Well, so, me personally, I have pretty much cut out all social media from my life over the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
But if something like this were to exist, and I lived in a small... So, the town that I live in now, I've lived here for about a year and a half.
Sure.
And I used to be a little more involved in, going to local restaurants, and
right.
There's like a music club where they play live music, and
yeah.
I have friends throughout the town, and it was nice to be able to like just go walking down the street and run into someone that you know.
Sure.
And they'll like invite you out to places, to someone's house where they're having a barbecue, or like there's some event going on. So that's really great. And I can imagine that if there was a social media app that could help facilitate something like that, I would be more likely to use it, especially when traveling. Like, that's a great point, because, whenever you go to visit someplace, you don't want to just go to the touristy areas.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to the places where the locals say, like, this is the best restaurant.
Precisely.
Or this is the best place to go for this. And for a social media app to specialize in that, I think it would really take advantage of that sort of specialized knowledge.
Yeah, so, this is Shoelace specifically. Now, it's kind of in beta, and I think it's interesting that they're putting it under the Google 120 banner and not like an official Google app, because, the first thing when you think about a Google app is that, okay, how long is it even going to be in this world? How long
right.
before they shut it down? Because they shut down everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff doesn't even last a year, and they just shut it down. So putting it under the Google 120 banner, I think, is a smart move for them, because that way it's not, people can't say, well, there goes another Google service, right? This one is specifically designed to help you meet new people in an area, which is exactly what Telegram was also doing with their more hyper-local messaging concentration. And, would you find that helpful?
Sure.
Would you be interested in that?
When you move to a new place, it's great to get to know people in your area.
Right.
It's really important as far as, like, knowing who to contact for what.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, and, this is the thing with the traveling thing, that you also commented on. Google Maps, this is well known, and it's been known for years, that Google Maps is shit when it comes to, like, really local. Yeah. It's great for getting you around the country and everything. It's awesome, and can it get you around a major metro pretty well? Yeah, probably. But some of these other little areas, it just... And this is what I've said, is that, like, if there was an actual, more of a, shall we say, freed market of apps and services like this, and Google wasn't so dominant, you'd probably have a lot more local apps that would do the same, similar to what these big apps do, like Google Maps or Facebook, for social media and all that. But the local ones would just kill any of the big guys that tried to match what they do, because it would have such a personal touch. And I think Google has realized this, and they are experimenting with it. In fact, I'll say this. I know I have people who either have worked at or still work at Google that have listened to the show for years. I would not be surprised if... I'm just saying, I know I was the only person saying this like 5-6 years ago, that, that hyper-local social media and hyper-local maps and all this stuff would become a thing. And maps are also a major part of this Shoelace app from Google. So... It's an interesting move. When traveling, I think it would make a ton of sense, because, like, all right, what's the great... you really... Like, here's the thing. You can't trust Yelp, right? Yelp reviews. You can't trust
entirely. Yeah.
No. So, when you go to a place and you ask the local people, you will get I think you'll get much, better recommendations. You'll get a much more personal touch and all this. And so if this app operated, what I think this app should have like walls, basically, like digital walls or digital boundaries not walls, but as you pass through them, then the app just takes on a whole new shape, and it brings up all of that more local data. I know people would say, well, can't you just use that and have it be a more global thing? I think the thing is that you should really only be able to contribute if you are in that area for a specific amount of time. Like, that's how this app should work. Is that, like you said, in your small town or in your smaller area, you've been there a year and a half. Like, maybe you have to be there 6 months before you can comment or add on to the app. That way you're getting real local data. You know what I mean? So it's interesting if you're going to have social media. I mean, I say, like you, Ellen. I mean, you said you've basically gotten off of social media. If you're going to have social media, this is the way to do it. Everything has to be hyper local, because it's the only way we can handle anything meaningfully is within a smaller number of people. We can't do it on the global stage like that. So, I mean, any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, part of the reason that I felt okay, cutting Facebook out of my life is because it was so overwhelming. There's just too many people.
Yeah, and ultimately probably wasn't benefiting you. I mean,
no.
And you especially. Let's call it, you're an attractive young gal in certain social groups, you probably were getting hounded from people all over the world. I mean, was that happening or not?
Yeah. I mean, creepy messages, thumbs up on pictures I'd posted years ago, just stuff like that. And that's not helpful. And I'm not getting to know anybody on there.
Yeah.
I'm not forming any relationships or making any deeper connections.
Exactly. Where if the stuff is more local, there's kind of a, I don't know, I don't think people have, or don't have as many bad actors because it's not so impersonal.
Yeah, and you can actually meet someone and talk to them in real time.
See, yeah, okay, right. Now there's the other rub, is that people on social media, this is one of the problems with social media. People on social media, they act like they're fucking rock stars, right? But then if you're actually around them, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and another thing, the people making the creepy messages and whatnot, they wouldn't do that if they were talking to you in person. They only do it because they have that mask of anonymity. Right.
So this hyper-local thing, I think, could create, I mean, again, I say fuck social media, but there could be some use for it. If it basically becomes a, like the local bulletin board, just in a digital sense, maybe that could get kind of interesting. So anyway, we'll see about that. But any other comments on this one, or are we good to move on?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Yeah, so another thing that I know both you and I rather despise in fact, I think about it, you don't have a single Internet of Things device. You don't have anything that, I mean, you have a smartphone, right?
I do.
Begrudgingly.
I have a smartphone. It's sitting right next to me.
Yeah. I know you're not a fan of it, but...
No, I shut it off every night, which, I know a lot of people don't do, but,
right.
I turn it off when I'm not using it. I try not to look at it or scroll through it throughout the day. But yeah, I don't have any interconnected devices, really.
Yeah.
I just try to stay away from it. And, that's another easy, security tip that you've been telling people for years, that I just found it easy enough to follow,
Right. Yeah, I'll say this, and I said this on the Q&A that you and I recorded. You're one of the people that I bring up where the recommendations, the ones that don't require a bunch of, coding and things like this or anything like that. You really do implement all these things. I mean, I love it. It's amazing to, I don't look at your phone screen or anything, but I know sometimes when you're doing a search and where to get, you're using DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, I have a DuckDuckGo search bar on my phone, on the main screen instead of a Google search bar.
Right, and you're using Firefox. I mean, you're doing everything, a lot of the little things that I've said over the years. I mean, you're just totally putting into play, and it's so amazing to see it. And I think a key to you're somebody that you're smiling. You're just a happy, in my opinion, you're just a happy person.
Thank you.
And I think part of the key to that is that you cut all this bullshit right out, and that's what I'm trying to tell people on this show all the time. When I make these recommendations, yeah, sure, it's great to have your privacy. Yeah, sure, it's nice to not have that. But I mean, it's a big part of it is to not have the headache of it. And I think you could be a happier person, especially when you're just surrounded by all this digital horseshit. And you implement it. And I don't know what your secret sauce is, but I think that might be part of it.
Well, I agree. That's part of what makes me feel so stress-free a lot of the time is not having, a lot of bullshit to cut through.
Yeah. I mean, and, we're together all the time, and, like, I'll talk about there was this, data leak, there was this hack or something like that, and you don't even sweat it because...
I don't know, and I don't care.
Well, right, but that's the thing. You don't even have accounts with half these people and all this. I mean,
of course not.
You are living proof of, like, the happiness that if you follow Sovryn Tech advice, the happiness that you can have in life, and it's so brilliant. And if only people knew. Anyway. I know your happiness comes from other sources, and obviously we're both very happy because we're in love, but I mean, regardless...
Oh, it's all due to Sovryn Tech. Your advice is winning.
I think it can do things for people, and they don't know. But anyway.
In all seriousness, I do agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, and largely, I don't, and I keep an eye out for these things, for all these different hacks and whatever, or, I don't like to call them hacks, but all these malicious attacks and data leaks and everything. And in general, I don't sweat most of them, where it's just like, I made sure I don't have an account like that. I mean, it can kind of limit you at times, but then that peace of mind that when, a hack happens, you're not worried about it, and you keep walking and smiling. So anyway, that said, one thing I know that we're both not fans of we're both not fans of smartphones either, but one thing we're not fans of are digital assistants, like these voice assistants like Alexa, Google Home, Siri, go down the list. Do you even turn Google Assistant on your smartphone?
No, never.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, when I first got this was like years ago, but I remember getting a Windows 10 laptop and like trying so hard to get Cortana away from it.
Oh yeah, and they've removed that now anyway. But go ahead.
Yeah, but it was like nearly impossible.
Yeah, because they so deeply integrated it. It's a miracle that they took it away from that.
Yeah, I've been very creeped out by them from the beginning because, well, they're listening to you. Yeah,
it's straight up. They're listening to you. And that's the thing, is that now a lot of these companies, and you go down the list of them, Microsoft, I mean, granted, Cortana has really taken a back seat, but you go down the list of them, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, whoever, they can claim that, we delete this after such and so much time. We delete that voice data. Well, here's the rub, and this was a recent story, and actually it came out that this was also true for Google Home, even though it might not have been as egregious or as less interesting, but this is from early July. And basically, Amazon now admits that while they may not keep the voice recordings that Alexa gets from you forever, they will keep transcripts.
Ooh, that's so much better.
Right, yeah, right. Like, oh, gee, thanks. Oh, you don't keep the voice data? Oh, but you're keeping the transcripts still. So they still know everything you said. And they basically admitted that there are plenty of times where it is listening well outside of the realm of you saying, hey, Alexa. Yeah, I mean, is this going to surprise anybody, especially anybody that listens to this show? No, it's not going to surprise anyone, and we figured that it was doing this. But now they've basically come out and they've admitted that employees are reading these things, are looking at these things. It's not just all algorithmic, and there are transcripts being kept, and those transcripts basically, and I feel kind of stupid that I didn't recognize this. I should have realized, it's like, okay, they're being very careful in the way that they word that, no, we allow you to delete. Like, even Google will do this. There's a page you can go to where you can delete all of the voice recordings that Google Assistant has made of you. You can do this with Alexa as well, I believe. And you can do it with most of them. But no one ever talked about the transcripts. No one ever talked about what if they took what they recorded of you and then just, turned it into text. I mean, and this is half the reason for a lot of machine learning in the tech giants anyway, is so that all of these processes can be automated, to where, what you say verbally can just get instantly transcribed. This is bad. I mean, this is about as bad as it can get. And when I said years ago, and I know you've been listening forever, Ellen, so I know I've said this, but when I said years ago, I guarantee you these things are always listening. and they're not going to get rid of that data. That's exactly what we have. Basically, I mean, may not be always listening, but it might as well be. And once again, just like everything, we were just talking about in the last story, how what I said would be happening, where everything is going to go hyper local because they're going to realize you can't do it on the global scale the way they like. That's coming to fruition, and now we know that this is absolutely, that this is true with all these digital assistants. I mean, how do you feel about Alexa? I know you don't have one, but
No, I don't have one, and I'd never get one because I don't care how convenient it is. I don't think it's worth it to allow a speaker that is directly connected to the internet and who knows where else, like Amazon's headquarters, where they're transcribing everything that I say, whether or not I'm talking to Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, is there something, this is kind of an out of left field question. I mean, is there something in your life that you wish you were doing that, I don't know, you feel like you just can't do because you're missing some technology? Is there something going on for you that...
Well, sure. I mean, there's plenty of things that I'd like to do as far as, getting to the next level, but Alexa's not going to help me get there.
Right,
Right. Anything that Alexa can do, I can do for myself, just as easily and much more securely.
Yeah, absolutely. I still don't really get... Well, let me ask you this. This is the one time I was half tempted to get an Alexa speaker, was for audiobooks. Because now I know you and we both use Audible,
oh, yeah.
Dare I say, religiously. I mean, we read books, like a wolf eats. I mean, we're voracious.
Yeah, I spend way too much money on Audible.
Right. So, but... Now, I mean, one thing that they kind of sold me on was that you could really, it's basically a speaker that you could just put down anywhere and that you could interact with Audible pretty easily. Does that hold any attraction to you, that idea?
I have a Bluetooth speaker that I can just connect to my phone and play audiobooks over. I don't need Alexa to do that.
But, Ellen, that's not as easy. Come on. It's got to be, you need to be able to just not even think about it. You shouldn't have to lift a finger. Isn't that the dream?
But I don't want anything that I say to be turned into a transcript that Amazon can use to make advertisements.
Right.
That just seems like, they're using humanity, anybody that owns these speakers, as a source of info so that they can generate more profits.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not getting a cut of that.
Or, they can listen in. What if the local police department wants to do some sort of, search on someone?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that hard for them to contact Amazon and request the information.
And some of these things are either already being attempted, and, who knows what the reality around some of those situations are, where the, law enforcement is getting access to some of this. I mean, there was a very famous case where Amazon was telling them no, but how far is that really going to go? So... Anyway, these things I think are far more trouble than they're worth. It's too easy because look, I can tell you, there's times, middle of the day, late at night, where there's basically gibberish coming out of my mouth, if you know what I mean. and there's a high probability that a smart speaker could get very confused and that I somehow said, "Okay, Google," or "Hey, Alexa," while I am screaming out. I don't know, So I don't trust it for a second. Any thoughts on that, Ellen? I just think it's too easy to and then do I want people to hear that stuff? I mean, in a perfect world, I would hope nobody cared about what I was doing in the middle of the night, but
I share your concern with that too. I don't want the speaker to accidentally think that I keyed it in or something.
Yeah, and transcribe that stuff down. I mean, whoo.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand why people would want to own one of these. I have known people, I've had friends who, I'd go over to their house and they have their Alexa in the living room.
Yeah.
And, it's, easy for them. If you're someone who orders a lot of things online, you can just say, Alexa, order me some paper towels. And if you have an Alexa and you're, listening to this out loud, Alexa's probably ordering you paper towels now. But it's that easy. And it can be funny when Alexa has some pretty silly jokes.
Don't people want to get out of the house? I mean, I don't know. I sit in front of a computer screen way too long during the day for the work that I have to do and everything, or the work that I do. And I get it, that the ease of that, and I've heard plenty of people say that. I don't even think that that's cool, right? I mean, how do you feel about that when people order stuff? Like,
No, I don't think it's cool.
Right.
I mean, but like coolness aside, I think it's healthy for people to have a change of environment. You know, you shouldn't be staying at home all day.
yeah, get out of the house, go to Rite Aid. I don't know.
And ordering things online it's not environmentally friendly. You're not supporting local businesses. Like, you're just like giving more money to these corporations.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
Right on. No, that's fair. That's fair. Well, something I think that we might be a fan of, and that I think it's important to mention, if you want to move on from that conversation
Sure.
around the Amazon Alexa. But basically, folks, I mean, if you still haven't learned the lesson yet, that these things are, I mean, if you care about privacy, well, maybe you don't want to carry a smartphone around with you. We'll talk about that in the future Sovereign Tech. But that's another conversation. But like, really, if you care about privacy, owning these damn things, and I don't care which one. The only hope I take in a lot of this, or the only like light that I see at the end of this tunnel, is that they're constantly putting these things on sale, and I kind of feel like maybe they've reached the peak of who actually wants these things, and I'm hoping that that's what's going on, because basically it seems like Google can't even give these things away, and they try and they can't. And
Well, they've been getting some bad press, you know. So,
Yeah.
So that might be cutting down their sales.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope so. So anyway, I mean, and this kind of technology, I don't know, it doesn't excite me. But something, to shift gears here, a technology that did excite me, or that does excite me, and the idea of doing it again excites me, and something I know you and I, Ellen, are both fans of. Not as of the day that this episode gets released, but just prior, on July 20th, 50 years ago of that day, of July 20th, was the Apollo 11, the mission when we landed on the moon. And it is the celebration of that event. I'll call it, I mean, I just want to bring it to bear. I mean, I'll call it that this is one of the most remarkable human achievements ever. I mean, what Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and everybody else involved, did with that, 50 years ago. Fuck, that's crazy to consider. Is nothing less than remarkable. And I mean, we talk about a lot of innovations especially in the consumer space, and a lot of like tech innovations that come out of Silicon Valley and everything. And when I think about them, and I think about the Apollo 11 landing and all this, like, they're all pale shadows. It seems so ridiculous and meaningless in comparison to what was pulled off on that day. I mean, Ellen, you got any thoughts about the Apollo 11? I mean, the whole thing. I mean,
yeah. Well, I know it was a huge project that involved tens of thousands of people.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, the smartest people on the planet had to be working for years in order to, like, create that mission. Not
Right.
just to, like, formulate it, but, there were, like, feats of engineering involved that had never been performed before.
Yeah.
And to say that it was, a great achievement for humanity, like, that just doesn't do it justice. Like,
yeah.
We went to another planet. We were aliens on another planet.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. And I don't know that we've done anything that amazing since. But, I just wonder, like, why haven't we been back to space? When will humans travel to other planets?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk right now of, the vice president of the United States of America, that they, anyway, Mike Twopence, he said,
That's really
he said he wants to be there by like 2024 or 2025 or something. So apparently we're going back. But I remember when George Bush on fire. When a previous president of the United States, fuck, help me out here, Ellen. No, the United States of America. Yeah, right. Had said we were supposed to be there by 2020, and that didn't happen.
That's like 6 months from now.
I know, right? We're not getting there. We're going to talk about something that's going to happen in 2020 later in the show. But, yeah, it is odd why we stopped. I mean, but I think about this a lot, and it does speak to the problem that it feels like for a long time now, we, as in humanity, as a species, and it's not just it's not just Americans, whatever. But we don't, unless there is some kind of profit to be made, we don't do it. And I don't think people realize just how poor character-wise that makes us all look. Now, I mean, it's not true for all of us. Some of us do what we can with what we can. But it's pretty sad that I mean, it does seem like, and I think there are, financial gains to be made by going to the moon. It is weird that we haven't gone there. I mean, you firmly believe, I assume, that we have gone to the moon. Any doubts in your mind about that?
Well, I mean, I guess one can never be 100% sure about the history of the world, but I do believe that humans have been to the moon. I don't think that was faked.
So you don't think it was a Stanley Kubrick soundstage or anything like that?
No, I don't really believe that. I think that's too much of a forgery.
Right.
I don't know. Just according to Occam's razor, that seems like it would be kind of ridiculous. But I think you have a really good point about like how corrupt it seems for people to not do things unless there's money involved.
Yeah.
But I mean, even with the moon, I feel like there is profit to be made there. Not
sure,
that
helium-3, lots of things.
Yeah, not that I want people to be like mining stuff from the moon, because like, the moon is a really important body, I guess, a mass for the Earth and the functioning of the planet as it exists now.
Sure.
But again, like, I just feel like there's so much to explore there. It doesn't seem interesting to us here on the surface, but for scientists, it's got to be like a wealth of information.
I mean, even as a launch pad for, you don't even have to do the mining, just to be a launch pad for the rest of humanity going into the stars.
Sure. I mean, there's so many theories about, like, that being easier to build giant ships in space where the gravity is lower.
Right.
And you don't have to break through the atmosphere in order to take off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so much to do. But it is, I agree with you. And I mean, the reason I think a lot of people think it's weird, well, how come we haven't gone back in the past 50 years? And they want to say, it's like, well, it's because we never went in the first place. I mean, I think that's outrageous. I think that there is something, and I've talked about this in other episodes of Sovereign Tech, I mean, I think there's something to some of the discrepancies in, like, the photographic evidence and some other things that make me wonder about what was going on the moon. But I don't doubt for a second that we went there. That Neil Armstrong and Buzz, that they were walking on there. I do. It's a funny thing. I think it was actually for the 40th anniversary, not the 50th, but at the 40th anniversary, they went to like find the original like film, literal like celluloid film of the what aired on television, what they recorded. And apparently that had been recorded over or it was missing. It was one or the other. Gotta admit, that's a weird one. Nobody's talking about it on the 50th anniversary. But that
is bizarre.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you don't want to record over something, that's the thing that you don't want to record over.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad enough when, like, this sort of stuff would happen. I mean, all right, and to understand, like, back then, when this happened 50 years ago, film was... That kind of film was like at a bit of a premium, okay? So it wasn't unheard of for studios to, literally reuse film and record over it or something like that, or to not even bother storing it. Like, these kinds of things did happen. I mean, like, we have episodes of Doctor Who that are just gone forever from literally 50 years ago, and we're never going to see them again. Either they weren't stored or something happened, whatever. But basically... and recorded over, like, that might not even have been necessarily possible with the technology being used at the time, because that was pretty high tech then, even with the tape. So regardless, it's gone. One of the most important moments in human history, and we don't have the original fucking tape. Like, I'll give it that. Again, there's oddities. I'm not going to say there aren't oddities around all this, but at the same time, like like you very well brought up Occam's razor, it doesn't make sense to say it was a hoax. If there's oddities, fine, let's explain the oddities, but Occam's razor basically says, no, what best fits the facts is that we just had that good of a grasp of the laws of physics that we were able to pull this off, and I think we did, and it was a beautiful moment. What do you got?
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. I mean, humans have done amazing. Like, we launch things into space all the time. Satellites, right. We've sent rovers to Mars, we've sent like the Voyager probes.
Yeah.
Like, one of them made it out of the solar system.
Yeah.
Humans are capable of really incredible things, and I have no doubt that humans went to the moon at some point.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I wish there were more stories from the people that like really worked on it from the ground, because I think that's what, like, one of the things to cement a lot of this for me is, you know, my dad worked for NASA, and, you know, he did work on the Voyager program specifically. And, you know, when he tells you how everything they went through and all that, I mean, you cannot help but, I mean, it's invigorating. It's exciting to hear, and you hear, you know, all the detail and what people had to go through. And, I mean, I'm just going to say, I think it becomes downright insulting when people start, like, laying out that the hard work that real people, you know, I mean, look, my dad was the farthest thing from any kind of government agent. I mean, not even remotely fucking close. He wouldn't even bother with that kind of shit. Okay. But when you hear, you know, stories from the real people that were involved in it, I mean, you know, you get the excitement, you get, you know, a deeper account of what happened. But then at the same time, you also get mad that, shit, why aren't we doing that still? You know, whatever that happens to be. So hopefully we do end up going back very soon. I think, as I said, throughout 2018, largely on Sovereign Tech, and throughout 2019 a bit, I think the era of humanity in space is really coming within the next few years. I don't think that's, I think that that's very, very possible, and we're on track. So anyway, move on from that.
Sure.
We could stay in outer space, though, because, you know, let's talk a little pop culture. Let's talk a little something. So you and I, Ellen, we are huge fans. All right, well, here's the thing. Here's another... why do I do a tech show? I hate most of this stuff. Like, you and I, we're not fans of TV, are we?
Well, yes and no.
Yeah, right, yeah, yes and no. That's fair.
Like, we use television to watch movies and to play video games, but...
Yeah.
I mean, we don't watch, like, Netflix or any other, like, television programs.
Right. We're not, like, up on what's hip. You know, what's going on.
Like Stranger Things or,
fuck that.
Or Westworld.
Yeah, which, by the way, let me comment on this, because I got some feedback last week. The last episode of Sovereign Tech, I kind of ripped on Stranger Things pretty hard. I haven't even watched it. I haven't watched season 3, but I feel totally vindicated. Steve Gibson of the Security Now podcast, my favorite podcast, he came out and said, he says, no, he says they dropped the ball. He says they lost it. He said season 3 was bad. It was terrible. So I feel totally vindicated in everything that I was saying, and anybody that like stopped supporting or did whatever because like I ripped on Stranger Things. I mean, it really just goes to show how much of a cult Netflix is these days. But Netflix is actually running into trouble. They're finally they're actually losing subscribers for the first time since they started streaming, and I couldn't be happier. I think that's tremendous news that we could talk about that alone. But admittedly, so anyway, we're not fans of TV. However, you have this great quote, Ellen, where you said, "I don't even think Star Trek is TV."
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, you and I love Star Trek. I mean, we love Star Trek. We watch it often. Very, very often. In fact, we're doing a rewatch of the original series right now. I'd love to have a conversation about that right now, because my opinion of Kirk has changed dramatically watching this with you. So, I mean, because you also, here's the thing. So, for folks that don't know, Ellen has like this, I don't know, it's not Occam's razor, but she has like this sword. I don't know what to call it. But it's like Ellen's sword, and she finds the chink in any armor, and she just puts a sword right through it. And you'll never have even thought about this stuff. And it's amazing to like watch things with her, and she will see this problem, and you're just like, oh, God damn it. And because you can't argue with her.
You never see it the same way again.
No, right. And watching the original series again has been enlightening, to put it that way, with you.
So for years, like, your favorite Star Trek captain was Kirk.
Yeah, I loved Kirk.
And mine's always been Picard.
Right.
And I think at some point over the past year, you changed your opinion.
Yeah.
But now, like, rewatching the original series, you're like, wow, why did I ever think Kirk was such a great captain?
Well, he's horrible. I don't want to get lost in this conversation, but he's an asshole. Like, and I don't mean it's because like he's a womanizer or something like that. Like, he's constantly kicking humanity out of paradise. He is constantly ruining every opportunity for it's bad. we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll do a Sovryn Trek where we'll talk about this.
Yeah, because we've had some really interesting conversations around this.
Yeah,
I think we need to have this discussion on air.
Yeah, so upcoming episode of Sovryn Trek on Zomia 1, we'll talk about this. Anyway, so Star Trek. Yeah, this is more than a TV show. We love this. And I do get CBS All Access, okay? While I'm not using Netflix, I do get CBS All Access. And we got the notification, I guess this is coming out of Comic-Con, but we got the notification, I get a little thing on the apps or whatever that says, oh, this is on CBS. Obviously, they know I love Star Trek. There's no way. It's one of, like, the three things that I'll just always be known for, So, anyway, I got the notification for the trailer for the Star Trek Picard series, which is all about Picard. Patrick Stewart reprising the role, the whole thing. And I was like, you and I, Ellen, we were just, we were laying down. We're like, hey, you want to check this out? And you're like, yeah, sure. And so we put it on. It's about 2 minutes long. I got a link in the show notes if anybody else wants to watch it, if you haven't already seen it. And listeners of this show, I can't believe you haven't. But we start watching this, and it's starting off fairly slow, But then there's some surprises in this thing. I thought the trailer was tremendous, and I'm going to spoil it for you folks. So if you haven't watched it yet, stop now and go watch it, because there are a couple of surprises that happen towards the end, especially one that I didn't see happening. I would have never, ever guessed it. But I want to talk about this a little bit before we get into our main stories of the week. So anyway, Ellen, what did you think of just an overall abstract, what did you think of the Picard trailer?
I guess, first of all, I'm just so excited that Picard is coming back to Star Trek, that we're getting more Picard. Even though now he's, significantly older. But the way the trailer made it seem so intriguing, because it's like he's going rogue, and he's got his own, pirate crew that he's recruiting.
Yeah, this is something you and I share, is that... I think we both said, because you've been on Sovryn Trek in the past, not on Sovryn Tex, you've been on that too, obviously, but on Sovryn Trek. And I think both of our favorite movies for the Next Generation was Star Trek Insurrection.
Yeah.
Which is when Picard goes rogue, and that's one of the reasons I love it. So yeah, I agree with you. It's really cool to have that again, but continue.
Yeah, I love the rebellious nature of it. And I don't know for sure that that's what's happening. It was kind of hinted at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to see more of Picard. I want to see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Yeah. Now, the big reveals that happen. Well, first off, we're getting introduced to this young woman character who, you and I were talking about it, we're not exactly sure who this is. One theory is that it's Lal, which is the daughter that Data built originally in, I think there was a third season episode of Next Generation. That was one possibility, or it could be a different body for B4. B4 was the other Soong type android that looked like Data from Star Trek Nemesis, which is the last time we saw Picard in action in that movie. And this is taking place some 20 years after that, and there's reference to the events in Nemesis, which I like Nemesis as a movie, so I'm more than happy for it to get referenced. I think that's fine. But we don't know who this young gal is. But who we do know is suddenly you hear this voice, kind of halfway into the trailer, that says, "What are you doing out here, Picard?" And then, close up, Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9 from Voyager. And I just was like, what? I could not believe it. I never... Because here's the thing. In fact, Ellen, you and I, we were talking about this. We were going to the beach the other day. And we were talking about Voyager. And what did you say about Voyager? You didn't care for it much, right?
Voyager... So, I think Voyager started out really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But then, after a while, it became pretty dull and repetitive.
Sure.
I just felt like it kind of fell off and there wasn't very much action. And then the last episode, they just pack in so much within that one episode. They could have spread it out. That's just my perception of that series as a whole. Yeah.
It's one of, in many ways, I've often claimed it to be my favorite Star Trek because it's like Star Trek for Star Trek's sake, which I would always say. But I think your criticisms were valid, where it was a show that kind of lost its way the later on it got. I did like the character of 7 of 9, but it does feel rushed at the end, like they're trying to wrap everything up really quickly. I don't disagree with that. So, but seeing 7 of 9 coming back, and there is a moment where you see a Borg cube in the trailer as well.
Right, I can't wait to see more about the Borg too. That's like such an exciting species.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, how do you feel about 7 of 9 coming back?
Well, I think it's really interesting that they're like overlaying 2 different series. I mean, they were on the same timeline.
Yes, they were running concurrently. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we talked about that, like Lieutenant Broccoli.
Yeah, Mr. Broccoli.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even Janeway was in, she was in Nemesis as Admiral Janeway, and she talks to Picard in that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love the fact that Voyager is getting love, you know, like that they're saying, no, Voyager fucking happened, and that it exists. Because I feel like a lot of Star Trek fans, I mean, I understand your critiques, yours are very valid, but a lot of Star Trek fans, and I don't think they're like hardcore Star Trek fans, but they don't care for Voyager. They don't like it. They're not interested. They don't want to know anything about it. And I think that's really sad, because I think there's some very special episodes done in that.
Yeah.
Which we've reviewed in the past, actually. You have like a top 3 and the whole thing.
Sure, yeah. I believe that, you know, some of the last episodes I did on
Sovereign Trek, yeah.
was about Voyager.
Right. Yeah, so I thought that was just a great inclusion. I would have never guessed that would have happened. Never guessed that they would have put her into it. Even though there was a comic book called Hive that was a Next Generation comic book, which is supposedly canon, according to Brandon Braga. Who knows if that's true anymore, but whatever. Anyway, that had to do with a mission by Picard and 7 of 9 to finally destroy the Borg. So I wonder if they're taking any cues from that comic book, but the comic book wasn't that great, so I'm kind of hoping they're not going there.
I don't know, but they did show the flash of the Borg cube in the trailer, so they might pull it in.
Might be Hive, yeah, I don't know, we'll have to see. But of course, at the very end, we get a look at a Data, who's obviously Brent Spiner through a de-aging process, which has been used in a lot of movies as late, starting with Tron Legacy, and I get like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 did it as well, and you know, where they make the actor look younger and everything. But that was a nice touch too. I expected to see Data sooner or later, because Data is like Picard's Spock.
Yeah, Data is like one of the most beloved characters.
Right.
He was really mine. I mean,
sure.
And so he's so memorable in that series, just as the foil for humanity. Yeah.
So it's a nice touch to have them. Even though we don't see her in this, I've also read recently that Marina Sirtis is confirmed. Of course, Deanna Troi is confirmed. Great. Yeah, she's confirmed to be in the show. So I think we're in for a great show. Like I'm very, very excited to see Star Trek Picard. What about you, Ellen?
Yeah, I'm very excited to see more Picard. I want to see more of the interweaving of series. You know, like the characters that we know from Voyager and from the Next Generation, like working together, being on screen together. I think that would be really exciting.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm excited. In fact, I'm so excited. You know, the only thing that could get me... You're going to have to pardon me, folks. Before we get into our main story, I am so excited. The only thing that could get me any harder for this is Blue Chew. Woo! How about that segue? You can laugh, Ellen. It's okay. Blue Chew, Sovereign Tech sponsor. You want to check this out. Folks, this is something for, well... even maybe it's not just about that, you know, you're getting up there in age or something like that, and maybe things don't perform in the bedroom as well as they used to, or maybe you just want a performance enhancement, which is what I dig about it. You want to check out Blue Chew, like, you know, the color blue, because it's the blue pill, and just go to BLUEchew.com, BLUEchew, CHEW.com, and if you use the code TECH, you can actually get, you'll get your first order of Blue Chew for free, and you only have to pay $5 for shipping. That's it. You'll get your first order for free. No in-house visits from the doctor, no going to the doctor. You just go there. They handle everything online, and it's discreet if it needs to be. But boy, I'll tell you, that Studenhofer in your pants isn't going to be discreet after you take Blue Chew. So jump on it. BlueChew.com. Use that code TECH, TECH. Use the code TECH, get your first order free, $5 off, and turn that bedroom into a starship again where, everything's getting exciting. And you know what I mean. So anyway, that's it for that. BlueChew.com. We thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. So, all right, now that we're done with that, let's get into our main story. Now, oddly enough, and I didn't plan on this, but speaking of where no man has gone before, and sex, our feature story, of course, Sovryn Tech is a show about science and technology, and honestly it gets into health and a lot of other things, and we're probably going to get into that in this episode. I'm not sure if we're going to get to all the stories that we planned on, because, you get two people together like us, and we're just going to start talking.
We'll talk forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is what we do in real life anyway. But I love the way, this is how this story starts off. This is what's so ironic. And it's from Haaretz, okay, so, which is, well, anyway, it's a big thing out of Israel, big paper out of Israel, or news source. Here it is. Scientists have gone where no person ever looked before. That's literally how the story starts. We're just talking about Star Trek, and let me give you now the headline, though, for this article, which is, Do Dolphins Lie About Orgasms Too? Some of them may have sex for fun, study implies. So, there we go. We got our Star Trek, we got our sex, we're leading in. This is just the most perfect series of segues I've ever had in an episode of Sovryn Tech, so thank you, Ellen. Anyway.
Well, now that you've read the headline and we've heard the first line of the story, I need to hear more because, thoughts are running through my head right now.
Yeah, yeah, right.
What have they done that no human, where have they gone that no humans ever gone before that has to do with dolphin orgasms?
Right. Well, so this is from April 7th, 2019, so this is fairly fresh. This is something I've been holding, because I have a whole ton of stories that, all right, when we get Ellen on the show, we're going to cover these stories, and so here we are. But anyway, I'll start reading some of it. So, scientists have gone where no person ever looked before, we hope, and belatedly discovered that the female bottlenose dolphin has a clitoris. Wow. Surprising. I guess scientists now actually care about female pleasure, which they didn't before. So.
Yeah, it's not really surprising. I mean, clitorises exist on a lot of female animals, Yeah,
right.
It's a common biological thing.
Yeah, so...
I'm glad they're paying attention to it now.
Right, and apparently, well, reading out of the story, it's a large one, reports Dr. Dara Orbach of Mount Holyoke College, Massachusetts, who conducted the research along with Dr. Patricia Brennan. Having a clitoris does not mean the lady dolphin necessarily wants to do it with every male in the mood, but a clitoris she has. Also, the dolphin clitoris has enough similarities with the human clitoris to suggest she may be able to get pleasure from sex. Like women, that doesn't mean she does, just that the potential is there. Quote, our anatomical observations suggest the clitoris is functional in bottlenose dolphins, but further research, including physiological and behavioral analyses, are necessary to test if sexual experiences can be pleasurable for female dolphins, end quote, Orbach spells out. The study was presented, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, structurally, the dolphin clitoris has bundles of nerves under the hood, like the human version. It may also expand when stimulated, though the researchers didn't test that. They studied dead dolphins, and if those were expanding, it wasn't from caresses. But there's one key difference that, if anything, suggests potential enjoyment. In the woman, the clitoris is external to the vagina, while in the dolphin, it is internal, at the entrance of the vaginal opening, which means, Orbach explains, it is in direct contact with the penis and would notice copulation. Also, dolphins do it a lot. Quote, dolphins copulate year-round, including during periods when they cannot conceive, end quote, writes the researchers. So somebody is enjoying it, though the jury is out on whom. I want to stop on this one here, though, Ellen. As somebody that shares some of these body parts with dolphins, I mean, just in my own experience, wouldn't it be more... I kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of feel like the dolphins got it good here, or the female dolphins, like... for it to be right there, because here's the thing, and I can say this: most guys, for humans, I think they grow up with porn, and they never they don't do enough. They don't have enough education in sex. A lot of guys, I think, are that way, and I don't think they realize that where it usually feels good is by stimulating the clitoris on the gal that they're with, not by just hammering away their penis inside of them, right? And as to where, with the dolphin, it seems like you could do both at the same time. I mean, give me a take here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are definitely some major differences between humans and dolphins.
Sure.
I mean, like, humans have the G-spot.
And
the clitoris is kind of removed from the vagina, but, I think... I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to have a clitoris inside of the vagina. It sounds pretty nice.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, you could accomplish both at the same time,
right.
penetration and rubbing the clitoris. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and like, frankly, this seems like it very much evolved for pleasure. I mean...
Yeah,
just on first blush, I mean, because I know that they're bringing up kind of a debate. It's like, well, we're not exactly sure that the woman gets pleasure from it.
Well, it's very interesting that dolphins mate throughout the year, even when they can't, even when, like, the female dolphin can't be impregnated.
Yeah, can't conceive, which leads to the idea that they're having sex for pleasure.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious that male dolphins get pleasure out of sex. I mean, like, there have been studies on, like, male dolphins doing all sorts of things to, like, be able to have sex with female dolphins.
Or even humans, where, like, there was the woman who was living with the dolphin, and the dolphin would that was a very strange study. Yeah, the dolphin would rub against. Yeah, that happens. Yeah,
she would have to, like, jerk him off so that he could focus.
Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty good evolutionary trick on the part of the dolphins, I'd say, on the female dolphins.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they're trying to answer the question: do female dolphins get pleasure out of it?
Right. Yeah, well, let's continue on a little bit with the story. And does the lady dolphin reach orgasm? That is not known. Let's face it, men can't even tell if women reach orgasm, let alone if marine mammals can. Like in humans, whether or not the odd fib is resorted to in lieu of lube to smooth things, it seems sex plays a role in social bonding in the dolphin. Certainly it does so in other social species, say the researchers, citing the bonobo. They famously use almost all their leisure time to have sex, though they are also capable of irritability. They're talking about the bonobo with that they use all their leisure time for sex, which, how do you feel about that? Like, I mean, do you think that that's a bad life for the bonobo?
Oh, it sounds like a great use of time.
Fucking right. It's like, all leisure times for sex? Okay.
I mean, that's pretty much what all humans want anyway.
Well, I would hope. I mean, we might talk about that here in a minute, but yeah, I mean, that's I'm not going to say that's far off the mark of what I want in life. I don't know about you, Ellen. You don't have to answer that, but...
I mean, leisure time is what people commonly refer to as pleasure time.
Yeah. So, you have the highest form of pleasure.
Yeah, what are the highest forms of pleasure?
I would say orgasming, guy or gal, is probably the top of the list.
Yeah. I would agree.
Well, there we go. Oh, boy, we're going to get in trouble here. Okay, so, reading on. Quote, in other mammalian species with year-round copulations, such as humans and bonobos, sex is known to be pleasurable for females, often through clitoral stimulation that leads to orgasm, end quote, said Orbach. Supporting the possibility of cetacean sexual rapture is evidence of even less direct relevance, but it's intriguing anyway. Fruit flies have amazing orgasms. A study at Israel's Bar Ilan University found exactly a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to find out more about that. Fruit flies have these amazing orgasms.
Whoa.
Man.
Who would have guessed?
I've
never seen a fruit fly in the midst of an orgasm. And maybe I have, I just didn't realize it.
Here's the thing, guys. If you are, if you want to seem really intelligent, maybe say that. Like, if you're actually intelligent, you're probably going to be able to get the gal off that you're with, if that's who you're with. Or if you're with another guy, that's okay, obviously. But, say to them, wow, you were coming like a fruit fly. I think that, and then they'll be like, well, what do you mean? And then you can give them this great research about, there was a study and all that. You'll seem really intelligent. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if that's giving off the right vibe that you're going like the impression that, comparing someone to a fruit fly.
Wait, if I said to you, you're coming like a fruit fly, are you going to be offended?
That just brings to mind visions of, like, flies on rotten food, and I don't want to be reminded of that when I'm thinking of something that's sexy, because that's not sexy.
See, this is Ellen's sword that I'm telling you people about, okay? I had this idea that you guys could sound really intelligent if you said this, and then Ellen's like, no, because I'm going to be thinking about rotten food.
Intelligent, yes. Sexy, no.
All right,
but maybe the intelligence is sexy, but that visual is not.
Yeah, it'd take a lot to get over that visually, right? Because rotting food brings up smells and all that stuff, and that can ruin everything. There's a lot of associations. As usual, you're right, Ellen. Okay. Reading on. There, it was proven with the fruit flies on males who would opt for sex rather than getting drunk, and was not checked on females, but the potential for fun is there. For all the messing around with dolphins for decades and rapturous coos at their intelligence, which we still don't actually know much about, nobody noticed the clitoris until now, despite its impressive size. Why? Because we don't eat dolphins as a rule, and nobody looked until now. The researchers say they dissected 11 dolphins that had died naturally and did close tissue examination. This narrow research on bottleneck dolphins does not shed light on the sex habits and mores of other species of dolphin, let alone whales or other relatives of this cetacean set. Their females may have clitorises or orgasms too, and we may never know. I want to stop and talk about this. Okay, no, it's not because we don't eat dolphins. I mean, I'm glad we don't, because I do think that the evidence stands fairly tall, or is fairly suggestive enough that dolphins are wildly intelligent, and I would dare say they are what I call sapient, meaning that they can act outside of instinct. They have an intelligence that, if not as high, or hell, maybe even higher than humans, it's up there to where they, I think they have agency. I think they have all these things where, you don't just off something like that for your own food. But the idea that they didn't realize the dolphins had a clitoris. I mean, look, it's only been a decade since humans have known how large the clitoris is for a woman, right? Because, I mean, that's like a massive...
It's an internal structure,
yeah,
too,
the internal structure is huge. Right, but nobody knew that until 10 years ago. I remember reading when, the headlines and the stories of, and this is just like in 07 or 08, where, wow, the human, female clitoris is significantly larger than we ever knew. It's like, how the fuck did you not know that? And it's because they didn't care. I mean, I think that's the real reason here. And maybe this is similar to what's going on with this, is that nobody bothered, nobody cared, or there's no financial incentive. Just like maybe there was no financial incentive to find out how to pleasure a human woman. There's been no financial incentive to find out how, dolphins get their action on. And maybe that speaks to what we were talking about with the Apollo 11. Like, what a shame that we don't just do science for science's sake. But anyway, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this research is going interesting places. I mean, like, what if it's true that dolphins do have sex for pleasure? Does that lend more credence to the theory that they're sapient?
I would say yes. I mean, a lot of people have said that dolphins engage in rape.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And that, it's funny because those same people who would say, well, dolphins rape, because here's the conversation that happens. Okay, you talk to these people, quote unquote, and you say to them, well, I think dolphins are sapient. I think that they're very intelligent. I think rights is nonsense, but for the sake of the conversation, I think they deserve rights. You say that to somebody, and they say, oh, what are you talking about? Well, dolphins rape. Whoa. If they rape, that means that there's the concept of consent. Doesn't that sound sapient to you? That's not instinct. You can't, They try to make the dolphins seem like this evil creature if you start to suggest that they're anything, that they've evolved to anything close to humanity, the knowledge that humanity possesses. But in their own arguments, they don't realize that they're arguing for the idea that the dolphins themselves are sapient. I think the importance here in pointing this out, I think it does point at sapience, but I think it also says a lot about us as humans, that sex is not just about procreation. Sex is a social action. It is something that you just do for pleasure. It is not something that is, that because we have way too many people. And in fact, didn't you read, Ellen, you were the one telling me about this. You read a story that, what's going on, like young gals today are becoming nuns?
Yeah, for the first time in like 50 years, there's been an increase in the number of young women that are trying to make themselves into nuns or become nuns, and like they want to be forced to wear habits.
Right.
They want to live by a strict set of rules.
Yeah, now I'm not saying that, if people can do whatever the hell they want to do, I'm not going to tell them what to do, and I don't care. But I think that points at a culture that used to exist that would say sex is only for procreation. Yes, it's pleasurable, but that's just for you to procreate. As to where I think this is amazing that, if this is true about dolphins, that this points at a much broader perspective on intercourse, that it has I think the science is absolutely in, quote unquote, that sex co-evolved. It evolved for procreation and for social lubrication, or social action. And this is just going to add on to that theory or fact, in my opinion. I don't know, do you have...
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much I want to say on this subject.
Please.
It's really huge, but yeah, I mean, people can say as much as they want that sex is just for procreation, but that is not the majority of the majority of, you talk to anybody, any group of people, and the majority of sex that they're having is not to impregnate someone.
Yeah, it's not to have a kid, right.
It's just because they want to. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
And there's such a stigma around sex, especially, I mean, not just for, Catholics or people who want to become nuns. You know, they think there's something, holy about preserving their virginity, which they have every right to do that, I suppose.
Yep, sure.
But, you know, to, shame people for wanting to have sex just because it feels good, that is such an unhealthy thing to do. I think it's wonderful that, you know, people are starting to recognize that sex can be just for fun, just because it's enjoyable, and because it brings people closer together. Or
Right.
dolphins.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, it's interesting that they kind of wonder, you know, the idea of the dolphins lying about orgasms, okay, which they get in this, is that, well, okay, so if women do it for pleasure, and if they have to perform for the man, and if they're conscious about all this stuff, or not perform for the man, but if we don't have... Lying about orgasms. I want to talk about this.
Okay.
For
yeah.
humans as well, okay? Do I think dolphins would do this? If humans do it, I think dolphins would. Again, because I think dolphins are at that level of sapience, of intelligence, okay?
Yeah, but what are the reasons that a human woman would fake an orgasm? Well, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean,
Well, go for it.
Okay, so human women fake orgasms usually because their partner is trying to pleasure them, and they're just tired, they want it to be over with, so they'll fake an orgasm so
Right.
that the other person feels satisfied in their performance. And you know, if you make the other person believe that you've had an orgasm, they're like, all right, I've done a good job, we can wrap things up now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a tacit acceptance of the idea that sex is for pleasure as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if that's what it's all about, making your partner orgasm, yeah, of course.
Now, you know, a funny thing. Here's an interesting thing, and this is something I want to bring to bear on this, because I learned about this recently. So there's a company called Astroglide that they, well, people know who they are. It's a sex lube company. Okay, they did a study. I forget how large the study was, but they did a study. You can read about it. I know there's stories out there. Okay, but they did a study, and I found out the most amazing thing, that half of men, I think it was half of men that they studied, they lie about orgasming.
What?
Right?
That's crazy.
I had no idea that men lied about orgasms. I mean, what do you have a thought about that? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, it sounds like they weren't enjoying the experience.
Sure.
I mean,
okay.
that's why people either they're not getting as much pleasure as they were hoping they would get, or they just want it to be over.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of bizarre. I mean, for women, it's a little bit easier to fake because they don't have some sort of fluid that they're expelling the way that men do.
Yeah, I mean, this is a popular thing, like the multi-orgasmic man, where they say that you ejaculate, you just don't or you orgasm, but you don't ejaculate. You know, either you call it a dry cum or whatever, but that's how you do it. Is that? And I don't know. There's a whole lot of oddness around that whole concept of the multi-orgasmic man. I get it. I mean, me, I'll just keep coming. You know, I'll just keep ejaculating. It doesn't really matter. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong if someone doesn't. I'm just saying that, that really, I agree with you. It's harder to fake, right?
Unless you're wearing a condom.
Yeah.
Then you could hide it.
Yeah. I don't know. That blew my mind. That guys, especially that many guys, lie about orgasms.
Or they have at some point.
Right. But I think it does overall, be it in dolphins or humans, and the fact that it could be males and females that will engage in this, in lying about it, just goes to show like how important this is as a part of who we are. And with dolphins, the fact that it could be that as well. In fact, kind of the end takeaway I really want to, or kind of the end thought that I had when I read this article was, now there's a classic book by Nancy Friday called The Secret Garden. It's from the 70s. And in the introduction to that book, she talks about how sex is like the source of all creativity. And I'm not going to say that's true across the board, because I think certainly trauma could be a source of a shit ton of creativity. I mean, I don't know how many sad songs we have to listen to for that to be the reality. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I wonder, if a species that holds orgasming, sex in such high regard, dolphin, human, whatever, like, I think that points at a capability for creativity in and of itself. I don't know. What do you think about what I'm saying there? Any thoughts?
Well, I think it's really interesting, and maybe it has some truth in it.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is great as, a cement or a glue that brings people closer together, and it really, it strengthens a bond between people.
Right.
And perhaps just the feelings and emotions that it can bring forth do generate some sort of creative activity.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure about that. I mean, yes, I know that, I feel like laughing and smiling and, talking and all sorts of things after sex. Everything just seems more fun.
Yeah.
And, that sort of, freedom to express yourself is really important when it comes to creativity. So maybe dolphins experience something like that.
Yeah, it made me wonder. It's just I feel like this really just adds more to that picture of perhaps the incredibly high cognitive functions that dolphins have, that sapience. And it just keeps adding on. I mean, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, any other big takeaways on this for you?
I think it would be amazing if we discovered that, there's a lot more going on in the dolphin brain than we've ever thought before, and all of a sudden humans weren't alone on the planet as, the most intelligent species.
Yeah.
It'd be amazing if we could communicate with them and learn from them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge. And I've brought this up any time that this dolphin, what some listeners in the past, who maybe aren't even listeners anymore, but who said this dolphin thing came up in the past. There's a quote from an economist. Again, let me rephrase that, or let me repeat that. I'm sorry, not rephrase it. From an economist, because they know anything about. Anyway.
It's all transactions.
Yeah, from an economist who said that his response. Of course, this economist was a guy named Murray Rothbard. His response to are dolphins intelligent? Do they deserve rights? His response was, well, they can have rights when they can ask for them. Oh man, I just facepalm every time I hear that kind of response, because dolphins speak sonopictorially. Now I don't even know what that kind of orgasm would look like, that you would send out a sound that would also generate a picture in the head of whoever you were fucking. Now I mean, in one sense that sounds awesome, wow, that's really great, but let's understand this. We have to be able to understand and translate the pictures that come with that sound to be able to even hear them in the first place if they wanted to ask for rights. And so it's just so funny when people say that. They talk in a completely different way. How could you possibly put that expectation on them? But regardless, I think this just adds on to more of the case that, well, I'm very glad that we don't eat dolphins. I'm very glad that we don't generally, as a rule, hunt them. Unless they get caught in the tuna, and that's not good either. But regardless, anyway, anything else you want to put in on this one?
No, I'm glad we got to talk about this.
Yeah, same. I always love bringing up more to this case, that there could be very intelligent species out there, and I think that has broader ramifications than we want to admit. But speaking of sound, let's get into another story quick, and then we've got a great review to get into. But this is from the National Center for Health Research, and it is, can listening to music improve your workout? Now, Ellen, you and I, we work out, holy shit, how much do we work out a week?
5 days a week.
5, 6?
Well, sometimes it's 4.
Yeah,
you know,
it shifts a little bit.
we
but
go pretty much almost every day.
Yeah, and for how long? We're there like 2 hours a night.
Yeah, it depends on the day, but 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, it depends on what the workout is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is it for you today?
Today I've got back.
It's going to be back day.
Yeah. But our workout schedules are a little different. I always incorporate cardio, and then I do a muscle group.
I got to get in on that cardio. Well, anyway, yeah, I mean, and when you're rocking that cardio, we're at the gym together. It's awesome. But something that I think both you and I really enjoy during it, I mean, if it's back day for both of us, like for me it's chest day, if it's back day for both of us, we're right next to each other, or we're even using the same machine or something and just offsetting. But otherwise, we listen to music while we're at the gym, yeah?
Yeah, and that's like one of our favorite questions to ask each other afterwards.
Yeah, either on the drive home or when we're finally working out together on the same sets. What were you listening to? And we ask that all the time, and sometimes it ends up being the same thing, which is really exciting. So anyway, I'm going to get at the premise here. Well, no, you know what? I'll ask you first. Ellen, do you think that listening to music, and you don't have to tell me what music it is, because there's times where when I've asked you that question, hey Ellen, what are you listening to? The responses you've given me have made me shriek in horror. Wait, you're listening to what? Or you'll ask me, like, Brian, is this on Plex? I'm like, no, that's not going to be on. It's never going to be on Plex. I'm never going to put that on the server. No, don't say that. But so you don't have to tell me what you're listening to. But do you think that listening to music? Why do you listen to music when you work out? Give me that.
Without a doubt, music improves my workout.
Tell me more.
So, like, the majority of the music that I listen to at the gym is while I'm doing the cardio, because, I'm just, like, on the treadmill or the bike, and, well, you're not there next to me, and I couldn't talk to you anyway if you were.
Right.
Because I'm breathing too heavily. So, like, music is really invigorating.
Sure.
I mean, once you get your feet, like, moving at the same speed as the drums or whatever, like, that's pretty exciting. And,
yeah.
I mean, there's so much inspiration to be had, like, sometimes you listen to music and it reminds you of, like, why you're working out in the first place, or it makes, like, the challenge of completing the workout seem more enjoyable.
So it gives you a cadence, it gives you an energy. Are both of those true? It gives you pleasure? Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I'll say it outright. I think music and this is just you being anecdotal, me being N of one anecdotal, I think music totally enhances my workout. Like if I put on, well, I'll admit maybe what I put on, if I put on Manowar or Sabaton or something like that, I mean, I am ready to crush some machines. I mean, they are not going to survive, and I mean, just the intensity of the music just gives me more intensity in my workout. I think there's really something to that. Also, admittedly, for me, it's a great time to listen to like an entire album. Because I don't always have that kind of time to do that. Mm-hmm. And if I want to do it for a review on another episode or something, like it's a great way to do that. But that's more serving the music, not the workout. All right, well, let's read a little bit from this story here, and let's see if it's actually true. So here we go. Listening to music while exercising doesn't just relieve boredom. It can help improve the quality of your workout by increasing your stamina and putting you in a better mood. Now, I want to stop on that. I don't know. I'll tell you, I don't need music. Like, as much as music can improve the workout, and so I'll do it, I don't actually need it. I could work out, like, just in a quiet... I mean, that's one improvement, is that when I put on, my headphones, and it, like, blocks everybody out, I don't like to pay attention to everybody else that's there, unless it's you. So I like that part of it, but I don't really need music to have the desire to work out. Would you say, do you need it to have the energy to work out?
No, I mean, for the longest time I worked out without music. I mean, I'm used to working out in silence, or like, running outside. All you can listen to is the traffic and the birds and trees and whatever. But
right.
It certainly is. It's energizing. It's a stimulant. So I would kind of agree that it does give more stamina.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, reading on, in particular, music that is motivational or synchronized with your exercise, that's that cadence and energy, is shown to have physical and psychological effects. When a song has a strong, steady beat, for example, you can pedal or run to the beat of that music.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Which is what you said, yeah. Which tends to feel satisfying and may inspire you to exercise more. The lyrics or catchy rhythm of motivational music inspires you to exercise longer or work harder during your exercise routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Studies show that faster-paced music tends to help improve athletic performance when a person engages in low to moderate level exercise, either by increasing distance traveled, pace, or repetitions completed. For example, a 2006 study that looked at the effect of music on the selection of treadmill speed found that while listening to fast-paced music, participants increased their pace and distance traveled without becoming more tired, which is pretty amazing. I mean, like, that whole idea, that mental concept of, like, pushing past the pain. You know, that the music, like, kind of tricks your brain into keep going almost, into keeping going, which is a fascinating thing.
Which also just goes to prove the point that, like, a lot of exercising is mental.
Yes.
Like, when you're getting tired, a lot of that just has to do with, like, your mental endurance.
Absolutely. I would agree. Reading on, other studies drew similar conclusions, suggesting that listening to music with more beats per minute can enhance physical performance during low to moderate level exercise. Several studies have shown how the exact tempo, as measured in beats per minute, affect one's level of exercise. These studies determine that the ideal tempo necessary for maximum performance depends on the type of exercise. A 2011 study showed that in order to achieve the best performance for cycling, which was calculated by measuring exercise intensity through heart rate, the preferred tempo is between 125 and 140 beats per minute.
Wow.
And anyway, they go on with some of those numbers. What do you think about that?
So I've been, like, keeping track of this just in my own gym time, and I would say, like, 90 beats per minute is really good for me because I can actually pedal at that speed, even when I'm doing really intense, like, uphill cycling.
Yeah, I mean, so an interesting thing is I don't really do a lot of cardio. I don't get on the treadmill or anything like that, and a lot of my movements are purposely a lot slower. So my music isn't always that really intense stuff, even though, you know, I might like to throw on Dragon Force, and that's going however many BPM that goes.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, right. But, yeah, I don't know. It's for me, that's not as important, but I guess I can kind of see that. But that's interesting. I mean, do you have a preferred type of music if you want to share? If you don't, that's okay. Do you have a preferred type of music for when you're on the treadmill that gets your heart pumping?
Yeah, I mean, usually when I'm doing cardio music, either I'm listening to EDM, like happy hardcore, or some sort of pop music.
Sure.
Like, I listened to a Madonna album recently.
Hell yeah, that was a damn fine album at that. Yeah.
Which I did review on the Q&A that we did.
Yes, you can hear that, but you got to be a member of the Zomi One Underground. Go to zomi1.com, get on the left sidebar there, and you can get your hookup with that. But great point. Okay, so let's go to psychological effect. Then I have another question to ask you. It says music can lead to feelings of pleasure or displeasure and can change thought processes and can cause changes in behavior. This psychological effect can be seen by physical changes in hormone levels. For example, a recent study showed that participants who listened to music they deemed pleasing had higher levels of serotonin, known as the feel-good hormone. Although difficult to prove the effects, this study suggests that the pleasurable experience of listening to a song can result in an increase in serotonin levels, which can put you in a better mood for your workout. Certainly mood is important to workout. You want to feel that you want to do this workout. You don't want it to be drudging. You're going to get a better workout if it's not. How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Like, if you're listening to music that is, like, inspiring to you, that makes you feel like you want to work out so that you can, like, have a hot body or something.
Right.
Like, that's really exciting. That makes you very happy to be at the gym.
Yeah.
There have been times where I've listened to, like, Manowar or some sort of, like, metal music.
Sure.
And that's not... It doesn't give me as much of, like, the happy feeling. It is motivational, but in a different sort of way. Like, it's not as pleasing or pleasant.
Okay, well, let me ask you. I know one, if you don't mind me saying, I know one that you and I both listen to often because we're huge fans. Dream Theater.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We listen to Dream Theater while working out. Like, how does that affect you? What is that like?
Well, again, it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's stimulating, it's motivating, but, like... I guess it doesn't make me feel as happy to be on the treadmill. You know?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Now let me ask you this one. How about podcasts? I hear that this is very popular. I don't unless it's like something I have to do where I want to listen back to an episode that I recorded, you know, just to make sure everything turned out all right. I do not like listening to podcasts while working out. That is not my shtick. How about you?
No, me neither. I'll listen to podcasts when not working out, like doing something else that's tedious.
Yeah.
But no, not during exercise time.
Right. Well, if you do, we're gonna cut in here with a little sponsor ad. If you do listen to a podcast while you work out, Free Talk Live, freetalklive.com, the number 27 talk show in the United States. If anything could come up that will boil your blood, I'm sure it would be on that show. It's an open phones call-in show that you can be a part of. You probably don't want to call in while you're running on the treadmill, though, because, it might sound interesting. I don't know. Sometimes I hear people running on the treadmill, and it's like, but maybe you don't want to do that. So just call in when you're not working out, but you can listen to it while you are and go to freetalklive.com to do so. So anyway, getting back to, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. So to get back to this, I feel like, I think music is a component of a workout. In fact, I've had people ask me for Q&As, like, what's the cheapest thing that you can do to improve your workouts, right? Like, least expensive. And I said, spend $10 and buy the Rocky IV soundtrack, okay, for the movie Rocky IV. And I said, as your workout, I said, I don't have the numbers in, but I bet there's a 10% increase in overall mass or endurance depending upon what you're working out for. There's just a 10% increase in goals when you listen to the Rocky IV soundtrack when you work out. So, yeah, I think music is just a component. I'm not going to say it's essential. And I know there's plenty of people who have tremendous bodies, like John Cena and some others who work out without music. They make a point of it. But I think it's very, very helpful. How about you, Ellen?
Yeah, I do. And part of me wonders if it's the hyper-expressiveness of music, because you listen to other things, like podcasts, they're slower pace, they don't have as many layers as music does, but, like, music is just, it's so beautiful and enriching. When you're working out, sometimes you need something like that in order to, like, give you that extra push.
Would you say audiobooks? Would you say the same thing? That audiobooks don't really...
Yeah, anybody talking is just not as exciting to me as, like, listening to something go...
Or the nice sound of an electric guitar, that's
right,
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you. So, but basically there is research and evidence in that music is a very, very good thing for even getting you started on. I like even doing that. Is you get the music going before you even start the workout. You just get yourself hyped up and put on Painkiller by Judas Priest, and you're going to go into that gym, and you might look kind of scary to the people at the front desk when you walk in after listening to that, but you're going to make it happen, I think. It definitely helps out. So, and here's from a couple of people who spend 2 hours a night in the gym, and it's definitely a big part of our routine as well. So do try that out. Anyway, we're going to take a little break, and then we will come back, and we have a climax. Not that kind. We are going to review a movie. And we're going to spend a little time on this. In fact, the movie we're going to talk about is, according to Ellen, it is the greatest movie ever made. And that's exactly what she said to me earlier. So you're going to want to come back for that. We'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, if you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed, so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Again, that's blocktap.io. blocktap.io, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Let's get back to the show. In 2014, he ran from Miami to San Francisco, raising awareness for Bitcoin and the homeless epidemic in America, and now he's doing it again. Blockchain evangelist and advocate for homeless rights Jason King is running across North America right now, from Miami to Santa Monica, right now. 5 years later, his commitment to promoting blockchain technology and fighting the homeless epidemic in America is stronger than ever. And you can help Jason now by going to blockchainacrossamerica.com. While you're there, donate to Satoshi Forest Sanctuary Incorporated to help the homeless, along with all kinds of other ways you can help. Get involved today. blockchainacrossamerica.com. That's blockchainacrossamerica.com.
The Climax.
It is time for the climax where, well, I get to talk about, and in this case, we, Ellen and I, get to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. And we are going to talk about, according to Ellen Stallone, Zomia 1, CSO, give it all the titles, scientist, engineer, the greatest movie ever made.
No.
This is what you said this morning, over breakfast. You said, this is the greatest, so she said to me, she looks at me, right in the eyes, right into my soul, you understand. Ellen says, Brian, let's talk about the greatest movie ever made. So we're going to talk about it now. And what is the greatest movie ever made, Ellen?
Well, I said that sarcastically.
I
You
see.
introduced this movie to me as the worst movie ever made.
It's not the worst, it's one of, but continue.
Okay. So this movie is called Battlefield Earth, which is based on a book written by L. Ron Hubbard.
The Ron.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so yes, this is a movie that came out in the year 2000. In the year 2000. Sorry. Conan O'Brien, people will know what that is. This is a movie that came out in the year 2000. Okay, based on the book, this massive, and you have to understand, this book is fucking huge. It was a big deal when it came out, but it's also like almost 1,000 pages. It is a huge, next to like Infinite Jest, it might be the largest science fiction book ever written, or longest, from 1982, I think. And I love this book. I love this book to no end. I wish it wouldn't end. It is so much fun. This movie, on the other hand, just to give a little bit of background, this movie, on the other hand, I said that if this movie, when this came out in 2000, came out in May of 2000, in fact, it was May 12th, I believe. I could look at the exact date here. Yes, it was May 12th. I called that ball, okay, because that's my birthday. It's May 12th, and this is my birthday movie. And I said, there's no way, if this movie is even a tenth based upon the source material that is the book Battlefield Earth, there's no way that this movie could be bad. Motherfucker, was I wrong. I wasn't just wrong. I was so far out of left field wrong. I couldn't be more wrong about anything. This movie is horrible. And so one day, I think actually both you and I, Ellen, we were both sick. And we're very productive people. We're constantly going, constantly doing.
Yeah, and we're never sick.
Yeah,
it's just a bizarre thing.
It was a weird thing. I think we must have just eaten something. I don't know. But regardless, yeah, we're never sick. And so we're laying down, and Ellen's like, you know what, Brian? This was about a month or two ago, maybe. And she said, Brian, I want to feel worse. You understand? I want to feel worse about. I want to know, like, I haven't felt this sick in a long time. Can I feel more sick? And I said, and she said, can we watch Battlefield Earth? That might not be exactly how they went down, but.
Well, when you say that something is the worst movie of all time.
Yeah.
I gotta see it. I'm so curious. I've got to know what makes a movie the worst.
I know, but this is kind of bad because, like, just previously, we watched one of the greatest movies ever, which is, she's touching my legs, folks. She's making me stutter because, whoo, that's a touch. Anyway, so you don't have to stop. So we had watched Megaforce, which we're going to review in the future, okay? And that's like one of my favorite movies. I fucking love that movie. But anyway, so we're watching Battlefield Earth, okay? Now, let's just get to it, all right? What, in the abstract, in fact, we can get to this right at the beginning. What, out of 10, what would you give Battlefield Earth? 0 is an acceptable score. I will accept imaginary numbers, negative numbers, in fact, for this scoring.
Square roots of negative numbers?
You go for it. Break out those exponents.
Well, actually, there was a lot to like in Battlefield Earth.
What?
As far as the premise goes.
Okay,
the storyline.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay, the content of the film, but the acting and the directing left a lot to be desired. I'd probably give this movie like a. Oh, this is so hard.
Come on.
But I love the story. It just, the presentation was so off. All right.
Well, yeah, so read the book.
I'll give it a 4.
A 4?
Yeah.
That is high.
What did it get on Rotten Tomatoes?
I don't know I don't know what Rotten Tomatoes did. I can look that up perhaps while you're talking, and I will, and then I'll come in with that information. But I remember, because this is at a time when the newspapers mattered, the newspaper review gave it 0 stars. In my young life at the time, okay, I was 19, I guess, when I turned 19 when this movie came out. I had never seen that before. Even Jerry Springer's The Ringmaster got a 0.5 star. Okay?
Wow.
I'd never seen 0 stars. And I remember the headline like it was yesterday. It said, Battlefield Earth bombs. That was the headline for this movie. It was so bad. Okay, it was so bad. Now, for quick clarity on this, we saw basically, anybody, if you didn't see it in theaters, you saw a special edition version of this movie that is like 10 or some odd minutes longer. Okay, so if it's any better than 0 stars, that might be why. And some people have tried to review it later on saying, well, with these added scenes, it's actually not as horrible a movie. And I see their argument, but we'll talk all about that. Okay, but I think it's totally a 0. Okay, I mean, just absolutely a 0. Now,
there's no redeeming features of it.
No, especially compared to the book, because the book is so great. This is such an insult to the book, and I feel bad because also I think people will think about this movie and they'll never read the book because of it, and what a shame.
Okay, well, maybe if I had read the book, I'd feel differently.
Okay.
But I haven't.
Well, give a quick, because also this movie only covers like barely the first third of the book. Barely. This was meant to be a trilogy at the time. And they really had big plans for this. It was, and let's be clear here. It's starring John Travolta, Forrest Whitaker, 2 of the most well-renowned actors of all time. And I mean, they really are. Like, Forrest Whitaker is highly respected. John Travolta is as well. And I think they are great actors, even though Travolta's crazy. You have, I mean, and there's some other okay actors in this, frankly. It was directed by, at the time, what seemed to be a smart move. It was directed by Roger Christian, who was just coming off of working with George Lucas on Episode 1. He was assistant director. You'd think that was some kind of a winner with that. But it just couldn't be further from the truth. So if you wanted to tell people, I'm going to look up on Rotten Tomatoes. If you want to tell people a little bit about the story, just a brief overview, go for it.
Sure.
Talk about the Cyclos.
Okay, so the premise of the story is that this is future Earth.
Right, the year 3000.
The year 3000. And amazingly, humanity has fallen, and there are pockets of people living in the wilderness as our ancestors did, like living off of the land in caves in small tribes. Except the Cyclos, which are these super large, they're like giant alien creatures. They're like, what, 12 feet tall?
Yeah, but they still look fairly human, which in the book they look very different, but continue.
So the Cyclos have come to Earth, and they've built this giant dome
around a city.
Yeah, that encapsulates their entire city because
that has a gas.
They can't breathe Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
And they essentially will like go out and kidnap people and enslave them and force them to mine gold for them. And who knows what they're using the gold for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's mentioned in the movie. But anyway, the main character, he starts out in one of these tribes that's living out in the wilderness, and eventually he gets captured by the Cyclos and enslaved by them, and while he's there, one of the main Cyclos, I forget what his name is.
Terrell,
yeah.
Which is John Travolta.
Yeah, so John Travolta's character wants to teach these stupid humans how to mine gold. And I say that because, like, when the Cyclos first came to Earth, they thought, like, cats and dogs were the dominant species or something.
Yeah, because it looked like humans were constantly serving them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't think that humans are smart. Like, they don't know how to interpret human language. They don't think humans are really capable of anything.
Right.
Except for mining gold. Apparently they're good at that. So, he wants to teach humans how to use all of this mining equipment and the whole process of, like, pulling gold from the earth, because there's this one gold vein that's really, it's just huge, and it's recently been exposed by some earthshake, and they can't go there because there's radiation, which is deadly to them.
Yeah, there's uranium there. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was maybe like remnants of some previous nuclear explosion or something.
Yeah, well, uranium interacts with the air that they breathe, or the gas in the air that they breathe, with their environment, basically, in like a catastrophic way. It just sets it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why they can't touch it, because of the uranium. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so Terrell's teaching this one human. He
we'll
puts
call
him
Greener.
Okay, yeah. So Greener is like fed information really quickly in this super learning device. He learns the Cyclo's language, and from that he's able to like put together this team of people, and they're able to like learn things about the Cyclos and formulate this plot to overthrow them and destroy the Cyclo home planet.
Right.
And they're going to set all of the humans on Earth free. So the Cyclo sends this team of humans out into the mountains with all this equipment, and he says, like, I'll be back, like, come back in 14 days or whatever, and, like, I want to have this cage entirely filled with gold. So, so what they do is they fly to Fort Knox, and they fill this cage full of gold, and in the meantime, they're, like, learning how to fly jets, and, like, further putting together this plot. I don't remember exactly everything that they do.
Yeah.
But, so they deliver the gold on time, but they've, like, learned incredible things that I don't know that any human could learn in 2 weeks.
Yeah, they find, like, a military base where they get Harriers, like jets and everything, that they can use in the rebellion against the Cyclos, and they learn about the uranium, that it interacts with their, with what they breathe, with their with Cyclo environment, and so they plan on sending a nuke to Cyclo, to their main planet.
There are so many funny scenes from just this part. Like, they're flying over the U.S. in this flying machine.
Oh,
and they're looking at a map, and they're like, are we in Washington yet? I don't know. We haven't crossed the line yet. They're, like, looking for borders on the ground.
Right, because that's what's on the map.
Right, but they don't see any, so they're just basically flying blind. They don't know where they are.
Yeah, which is funny, which adds into a very anarchist concept of borders are just imaginary lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a funny thing to lay out. Also, I think it plays into, like, maybe some old sci-fi ideas, like from Korzybski, which would be the map is not the territory, you know? And so, that's one of the funnier moments. I'll give it that. That was a great line in the movie. Yeah.
And also when they're at this military base, and they're, like, trying to put together this nuclear weapon.
Right.
Just by reading manuals.
Yeah.
And they succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah, and, well, I mean, big action happens, right? The rebellion goes on.
They succeed in their plot, eventually.
Yeah. Spoiler alerts, folks, and believe me, this movie couldn't get any more ruined for you. But, outside of the production. They do end up blowing up Cyclo. It works.
They take the nuke, they beam it to the planet, they beam back in time.
Right.
And they blow a hole, like, somebody has to sacrifice themselves, of course, but they blow a hole in the giant dome that all the Cyclos are living in, so of course they all die.
Yeah, it's suggested that one of the gas drones, which are these terrible vehicles, that automated vehicles, I guess, that Cyclos have, that one gets beamed to Earth from Cyclo. And in the book, you find out what happens with that, but that would have been like the plot of the second movie, which was how do we take down this gas drone that made it. You don't exactly notice it, you have to really be watching to notice it happen in the movie, but yeah, that happens, and basically the movie ends with rah-rah, we're the humans, we win, right? Would that be fair? Or
yeah, there's some pretty incredible action scenes that go down, but the humans, essentially, they all learn how to shoot, and they're all, like, celebrating at the end. They've killed all the Cyclos. Hooray! We can all be free now.
Yeah. Well, so I looked up on Rotten Tomatoes while you were telling, like, kind of the basic plot of this movie. Okay. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 3%.
3%?
3%. Audience score is 12%. That's pretty low. That's got to be...
That's like one star, maybe.
Yeah, here's the critics' consensus. Here's the one-liner. Okay, so it's ugly, campy, and poorly acted. Battlefield Earth is a stunningly misguided, aggressively bad sci-fi folly. How do you feel about that, Ellen?
It was ugly.
Yeah.
It was very campy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what did you like about this movie?
Well, again, I like the premise of it, that
Mm-hmm.
aliens have come to Earth and they're forcing humans to mine gold for them. I mean, that's kind of a theory that people have already had going on for years now, like that humans are some genetically modified species for the Anunnaki that are living on Nibiru. And I
Sure.
put that in air quotes.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually believe that. But, like, we're just here to mine gold, and that's why we like shiny things and are materialistic.
Right.
So I like that premise. I thought it was very cool that... Well, I mean, there's so many things that happen in the movie that I just think are, like, really... They're endearing to the film. And maybe it's just John Travolta's character. But
I mean, don't you
know,
feel like it's so bad it's good, or like?
Yes,
Is
yeah.
that what you're thinking? Is that like your?
A lot of parts are so bad that they're good. I agree
Yeah.
with that assessment. Yeah, like John Travolta's character has this. He's very self-important. He thinks that he's the smartest cyclo out there.
Right.
And like he's got this assistant, who's
Kerr,
Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah. The character's name is Kerr. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's constantly calling him an imbecile, and he's like trying to teach him how to use leverage to gain power.
Yep.
And I mean, like they have their own like subplot that goes on throughout the film, where like Kerr is trying to get some sort of leverage on John Travolta, and at some point it almost works out, but then his plot is overthrown. It's just, it's kind of funny, but at the same time it's very serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just it's so badly done, and the shame is that, again, if you read everything that happens in the movie, if you read it in the book, it just, I don't know, it flows better, it makes more sense, and you're really rooting for the humans really, really hard, and it's so exciting. I just don't know how they fucked up the excitement. And another big problem for me, and maybe the biggest problem for me with this movie, is there are things that happen in the narrative that make no sense. Like, suddenly these people who are walking around using stone knives and bear skins, and they don't get put into the learning machine like Johnny or like Greener. Okay, suddenly they can fly a Harrier. I mean, look, folks, you got to understand. Like, the Harrier wasn't even like a part of the original book. Okay, but understand that your best pilots that could fly an F-16, a lot of them can't fly Harriers because it's that advanced a machine, because it's a VOTL, vertical takeoff and landing.
But they were practicing in simulators.
There's just
for
no
weeks.
way. There's no way. Like, you can't. You have to be so good. Like, that was the worst choice for them, was to choose, a Harrier, for that. Oh, holy fuck.
And they were flying these things around and shooting down the cyclo flying machines.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other, like, little narrative things that happens. Like, these people just come out of nowhere and decide to work with Greener and fight for his rebellion. And I mean, they literally just come out of nowhere. There's a million things.
They run out of the woods.
Yeah. I mean, and look, all these things happen, or a lot of these things happen in the book. But that's why the book is 1,000 pages long, because you have to, like, a good writer, a good storyteller gives you the reason, or makes the case for why these things make sense, why this works, where these characters come from, and all that. This movie doesn't do any of that at all, and I think it's a complete fail on that. It's also a movie where the music, I'm trying to remember the person's name, Cimarol, I know is the last name. I think it's a gal that did the music. This is one of the rare movies that just has, frankly, a horrible soundtrack. Like, there is nothing redeeming about the soundtrack at all, and I almost never say that. Usually a movie will at least have a redeeming soundtrack. And no, the score in this is just bad. But anyway, what else you got for this movie, Ellen?
Yeah, I mean, there are some things about it, like the cinematography, the filming, like, that was... They did some pretty bad things with that. Like, there's slow motion shots throughout the film, and it's not just, like, slow motion. It's, like, the slow motion where it shows you, like, clips of like sort of like a reverberation of the last scene.
And did you get the sense they were supposed to be there to like make the moment emotional or something?
It's supposed to.
Yeah, but it didn't work, right?
But it's just so corny.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah, and just quick, I want to mention, like, because we talked about the special edition, how, like, the movie you see now is fairly longer than the one you saw in theaters. The woodsy people, like the guy wearing, I don't know, whatever that is over his head, like a wolf fur or something, them getting trained, or, like, in the simulator, flying the Harriers, that wasn't in the theaters. That scene wasn't there.
So they were just flying these planes.
So literally,
without any training.
Yeah, an hour and 40 minutes into the movie, if you're watching it in theaters, suddenly these Harriers come up, and it's these guys who you just saw come running out of the woods holding sticks are suddenly flying these things. And like, I remember watching it, and I go, wait, how the fuck did that happen? Like, no, that's ridiculous. That's so bad. Oh man. So admittedly, I'm colored by my opinion is very much colored by the theatrical version. And it was so terrible. It's so imprinted in my brain, you know. But the special edition does ease up on some of the explanation. I will give it that. So, you know, you're being kinder to it makes a little bit of sense. It doesn't. I'm not going to say that. That sounds insulting. It makes sense. But continue.
Okay, well, you know, maybe I'm just being kinder to it because it's science fiction, and I'm just a huge fan for science fiction.
I love you for that. I mean,
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not going to take any points off for enjoying Battlefield Earth, but anyway, continue.
Yeah, there's some things in this movie that it's like funny and interesting. It just was played out so badly. Like specifically, I'm thinking of the scene. I think we talked about this earlier, where the Cyclo like set some humans free just to see what they would eat first,
right,
when they got their freedom, because they didn't know what humans liked and they wanted to reward them.
Yeah.
So they let the humans go, and they like run into this abandoned mall, and there's nothing around for them to eat. They've been like hunting all day. They didn't find anything, but they found these rats, and they're in this mall. They can't start a fire, and there's like a bunch of snow outside, so they have to eat the rats raw.
Yeah. And
the Cyclo's like, that's the first thing they chose was raw rats? All right, that's what we'll feed them from now on.
Yeah.
It's just so, like, it could have been done really well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Well, I'm telling you, you have to read the book, because the book is tremendous. And, I mean, it's somewhat cliche now, but again, the book came out in 82. It's a shame. Because, yeah, like, there's little moments here and there that I think are kind of funny in there, in the movie. But, yeah, the execution, even you saw it, was bad. Even without knowledge of how great the book is.
It was just goofy. And
Yeah.
I think it was John Travolta. Like, he really made it goofy. I think it was meant to be, like, eerie and dark and, like, you know, make these Cyclos seem like they're oppressive and they're sadistic.
Yeah.
But instead, it was just, like, kind of silly.
Yeah. The sad part is, I think they might have ended up making the other films.
Did they?
No, they didn't. But the company that was the thing is, the studio that made it, they were playing some funny numbers with foreign investors, and so the studio went under, and you know, some people probably got legs broken, figuratively and literally, and so that kept any plans for, you know, the trilogy to continue. But god damn it, I mean,
Let's see the second and third part to this movie.
Amazingly, I don't think this movie's ever been released on Blu-ray.
I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a 4K version of Battlefield Earth, I'd have to call up the company that was releasing it and saying, so run the numbers by me. Like, what? How does this make sense for you? You couldn't even put it in like a multi-pack where like they put 4 movies on one disc and it could be like a John Travolta special. You couldn't even do that. I think that's how bad this movie is that they just don't even bother. And I think maybe they had some kind of licensing deal, and they were putting out the special edition with the DVD originally, and that's how it got a DVD release, and it seemed like anything you put out on DVD would sell because, you know, you put a couple special features and people would want to see it. But I can't even imagine that did any great numbers. This is such a bad movie. It's not the worst movie ever, but it is up there. The worst movie ever is a movie called Any Given Sunday by Oliver Stone, and it is a horrible, horrible film. It's a football movie. It's terrible. What's your worst movie? Do you have a worst movie?
Oh gosh, I haven't given this any thought.
Haven't given that any
Yeah.
thought. Anything that comes up quickly. Mac and Me? You did watch
Okay,
Mac and Me.
That was bad. I'll have to get back to you on that one because there's some bad ones out there.
All right, we're going to find out. Maybe it'll be on a Q&A. Someone can ask. In fact, could people ask you questions for the Q&A, and would you come on?
Please, I would love that.
All right, folks. You can email bbs@sovereigntech.com. Ask the questions for Ellen. She'll be on the Q&A, but you're going to have to sign up for the Zombie 1 Underground for that.
That's right.
Yeah, damn it. So anyway, so Ellen gives us a 4 out of 10. You're still sticking with that 4 out of 10.
You make me feel really unsure about that. Like it should be low, but I appreciate the silliness of it.
All right.
It's sci-fi, and I can't hate it that much.
All right.
But if I read the book, yeah, I'm sure I'd feel the same way as you do.
If you read the book, we'll have you come back, and you're going to come back anyway, but we'll have you come back for that to talk about the book, because I'll tell you. So 0 out of 10. If I could give negative numbers, I would. 0 out of 10 for this movie for me. The book, 10 out of 10. Fuck, 12 out of 10. The book's amazing. It's such a ride, and especially for the money. But, wow, yeah. So, all right, Ellen's greatest movie of all time, Battlefield Earth from 2000. No. Well, all right. Anything else you want to get out there about this movie? Otherwise, we'll wrap this one up.
No, I mean, just go into it with a sense of humor, and I think you'll be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, if you need to vomit, I think we could have used a good inducing, vomiting, and this movie could do that. I don't know.
Yeah, there are a few times where you're like, oh.
Yeah, so if you're not feeling too well and you need to induce vomiting, go for it. Like watch Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, we had the trash can right next to
us.
us.
We did. Yeah, we were ready for this. It's like, wow, this is... Anyway, Ellen, as always, wonderful to have you on Sovereign Tech, and I'm sure it's going to be happening a lot more. Any other quick comments you want to get out there?
No, thanks for having me on, and I can't wait to cover more stories with you.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So, and then lots of other content. Of course, we got to do that Sovereign Trek where we got to talk about so much to talk about there, what's happening on Star Trek, and well, I'm sure there'll be other episodes that we'll have you on. So, Hard and Fast Podcast, you're going to be on that.
Sure, yeah.
Fuck yeah. Okay, so anyway, that's it for this episode of Sovereign Tech. Of course, go to Zomia1.com to become a member of the Zomia 1 Underground to get more of me and Ellen. And we'll wrap this one up. And oh man, have we got... we were talking about data leaks and all this stuff earlier. The next episode of Sovereign Tech coming up, I already have it all planned out. Get ready. It's going to be a data leak extravaganza. Man, I can't even begin to describe it. So we'll have to do it on another Sovereign Tech. We will see all of you on the other side.